on the one side, Maslow said that self-actualization depends on the satisfaction of the basic needs. So only if you satisfy all the needs on that pyramid of needs, so you make sure that you're safe, you make sure that you get food, you make sure that you have some relationships with other people, and you met that need for connection and intimacy, only then you can reach this stage of self-actualization. So obviously it would be difficult to, work on your growth when you struggle to put food on the table. But at the same time, as the self-actualization theory has been developing over years, it appears that even when you're working on your safety needs, even when you're working on getting a job or getting money or getting relationships in your life, that could be also an expression of self-actualization. And why is that? The major distinction between a self-actualization process or self-actualizing people who are driven by this motivation, by this need, and the average people who don't, is that self-actualizing people see needs, their own needs, as something pleasant to satisfy in a way. So it's essentially when they satisfy needs, they choose to do it for the purpose of feeling good, of having a delightful experiences in their life, for having joy in their life. So they're not pressured by the environment to meet these needs or by their own bodies in a sense, but they choose to meet these needs as a part of the whole journey. So as I was mentioning before, one of the characteristics of self-actualizing people is this ability to take pleasure in simple things, to be grateful for very simple things. So even when we strive towards basic safety needs, even when we're striving for getting a better job or getting a job at all, that could be still a part of self-actualization process, as you are choosing these things for yourself, in a sense. I know in some circumstances you could obviously argue that it's very difficult. And yeah, that is true. It might be very difficult to make right choices. You might be, kind of very pressured to make these choices very quickly if it's a very difficult situation. But the possibility is still there. There's still possibility for growth, even if you're working on these very basic needs. Whereas in turn, if we take people who are not very growth-oriented, who are not self-actualizing, the way they see their needs are basically as kind of a nuisance in their life, as something very irritating, something frustrating, right? So basically, their choices in their life, regardless on what level, what stage of the pyramid or the hierarchy of needs they are working on, their choices will be based on deficiency. So what they're not having in their life. That is a lot of pressure, if you ask me, right? And we all been there. So basically, from this perspective, such individuals will be dependent a lot on the environment. So dependent maybe on government, on other people, on friends, on family, to satisfy this super irritating needs, right? Kind of expecting other people to treat us with respect or give us something. And basically when they satisfy their need, they look for another deficiency in their life. So it's very difficult to feel grateful, right? Or to learn something from such experiences. Now is the question, why is not everyone around me actualizing themselves, right? So what happens is that basically in childhood, we learn that certain experiences bring us joy. Certain experiences are good for us. Certain experiences make us feel good. Certain experiences bring us this kind of youthful delight in a way, where we, as children, we basically engage in these activities for the sole purpose of, because it's good, it's nice, it feels good, right? And then what happens is that that's the theory basically of humanistic psychology. I'm not saying that is set in stone and that is 100% what's happening. It's just something to consider. And then what happens is that we learn that our parents are not accepting certain experiences and they punish us for them. So we want to gain, obviously, this acceptance of the environment, of our parents, and then later of the society, of our peers. So what happens is that we start to restrict these experiences and these choices. So we, even if something is aligned with our feelings, in childhood it's very simple, so it has to be just the feeling. Even if something feels right for us, if we are not met with this approval of our parents, for example, and they punish us for us, make us feel guilty or bad about doing certain things or choosing certain things, we're going to start pushing away. We're going to stop engaging in these experiences. So, for example, if I play with a particular toy as a child, and it's super satisfying for me, I love it. It's the best experience. I completely immerse myself in that play. But then my parents come in, or my mom comes in and say like, this is a ridiculous toy. It's stupid. Why are you doing it? I'm going to start feeling weird, right? At first weird. That's going to create some conflict. Then I'm going to, if it happens again, I'm going to probably avoid playing with that toy around my parents because I don't want to get that negative reaction. And then essentially I'm going to abandon this toy altogether so that I stop getting that negative feedback from the environment. So this is a very simple example, but that's how we set ourselves on this path of blocking certain elements of our experiences and essentially certain parts of ourselves because they bring us disapproval from the environment. And then as a result, we switch from orienting ourselves or being motivated, rather. We switch from being motivated to engage in experiences for the sole purpose of joy or delight to choosing experiences that will bring us acceptance and approval from other people. And what happens is that we're going to push away certain parts of our personality up, far away in the unconscious because they don't bring us approval, right? They don't bring us acceptance. They make us feel maybe weird or ashamed or something like that, something along these lines. So as a result, if we fast forward to adulthood, for example, such individual will be choosing things in their life for the purpose of approval and acceptance of other people. So in this context, I don't mean an approval or validation in the narcissistic sense that we're fishing for compliments of other people, but it's more like trying to fit in, not cause too much conflict or controversy around other people. Make sure that we don't get these weird looks from other people. Make sure that someone doesn't criticize us or someone doesn't ridicule what we are doing. So we shape ourselves into this perfect, in a way, human being that doesn't get these negative experiences. But as a result of that, as you see here, we are not very autonomous. We are not making choices based on our own values and what feels right for us, what would be good for us. The major obstacle is this kind of symbiotic relationship with the society. It's symbiotic, which isn't entirely good for either of the side. Maybe for the government or for the society itself. In certain contexts, actually. But essentially, what is happening is that we become driven by our fear. Fear of breaking social rules, fear of not being accepted, fear of being rejected, and maybe even fear of being by ourselves, on our own, basically. So we are driven by this fear because obviously if we break the rule, if we do something that is not compatible with people's values, essentially, we're going to get this disapproval, right? And that's what we fear the most. That's what we've been conditioned to fear in a way. So essentially we start avoiding questioning anything, or we avoid kind of looking inwards, learning more about ourselves. And it is a valid fear because, nobody wants to be completely alone, or we might associate it with maybe a threat to our survival if we stay by ourselves, or if we are met with a huge group of people with disapproving looks, or kind of criticizing comments. It could be very threatening to our survival in a sense. So the fear is valid, but it is a question of kind of, do we want to stay in that safety, or do we want to grow? Do we want to keep getting kind of false acceptance from other people because we are not fully whole, as we repress different true, authentic parts of our personality? Or do we choose this growth and development, which is kind of risky because, yes, we might be met with disapproval. Yes, we might be met with social rejection. But at the same time, there is also this potential for greater rewards, because self-actualization, as I was saying, is this greater expansion and being more flexible, more adaptable, right? So actually, we could trick ourselves in terms of that fear of not being accepted or being rejected or being completely ridiculed by other people, by saying that perhaps if I grow, if I develop, but only as this authentic human being, maybe I could get even more self-acceptance. It's not really a motivating force for self-actualizing people, but I think it's an interesting approach if you want to start negotiating with that fear.